Welcome to the bottom of the seafloor. We're at 4,419 meters. We have a little welcoming committee here waiting for us today.
So we just want to say good morning, everyone, and welcome to dive number 336 on board RV Falkor as part of the Ningaloo Canyons expedition.
I'm Dr. Nerida Wilson from the Western Australian Museum.
And my name is Lisa Kirkendale from the Western Australia Museum, and I'll be guiding you through the dive this morning.
Until now, we've not had the ability to take this kind of imagery in Australia, and so we're hoping to lay down a foundation for future surveys to compare against. So we're heading to the two largest Midwest canyons, Cape Range Canyon and Clotes Canyon, and they're just offshore from Exmouth Ningaloo region. Although these areas are protected, we don't have a great idea of what animals actually live inside the park boundaries.
To date, we've named about 1.5 million species of animals on the land and about 300,000 species of animals in the sea. But the sea is 70% of the world, and so there's still a completely unresolved question about how many species of animals there are in the ocean. Unless we start to get a baseline of what's there, we don't know really what we might lose.
So what we're hoping to achieve through this expedition is a better understanding of the biodiversity, and we're going to achieve that through doing ROV dives with actual taxonomists in the room, saying this one's interesting, we need this one, not that one. And so we're able to actually do that on the fly. Normally we get given organisms later for the museum, but you never get an idea of what they look like when they're alive.
We're lucky to be catching this close-up video footage, so we're taking the opportunity to look at this animal very closely.
The imagery shows us, especially for deep sea animals, just how they live in their environment, how they interact with other things in the environment. We can't see it any other way than having this ROV.
And just stunning. For me, it captures this cruise perfectly, which is you go out and you're expecting certain things, and all of a sudden you're just taken sideways and you're now in the moment of discovery, doing something you never expected and seeing something you've never seen. So it's just magic.
I've never done anything like that.
Hello?
Hello. Sorry to interrupt, there's a flashing giant squid on the...
Seriously. It's super exciting, and I actually need to go now. That's cool.
Immediately it tells you how little we really do know about the deep sea.
Each sample we do take is done so with care and precision. The combination of the imagery and the manipulated tools that we have at hand means that we can be very selective about what we need to get the science done.
Well done.
Our approach of combining macro surveys with environmental DNA information to pick up signals of animals that we haven't seen on our surveys, that means that we can actually improve our ecological insights. Having the specimens means that we can identify them properly and describe them if they're new to science.
If it's something that I know we haven't seen before, or it's something that I know is not really recorded from the area before, it's fabulous.
Look at it. Yeah, it has no face. It doesn't have a face. Well, this is what I wanted to see. Oh my God, it's fantastic.
So high excitement already, even before we can properly sit down. This is a faceless cusk eel. Please enjoy the footage of this amazing creature.
A new record for Western Australia. As far as I know, it's the deepest specimen of fish that's ever been taken from Western Australia, and certainly I've never seen any footage of this thing underwater from Australia. So to put all of those things together for this just one thing, let alone all of the other species that we're doing the same thing for, it's just fabulous.
So there's a saying that life begets life, and it's certainly true in this case. We've zoomed in on the sea cucumber to see that it's covered in what we thought were tiny hairs, which have turned out to be hydroids, which are related to corals and sea anemones, and it's just covering this animal.
Being able to share those unique moments with all the people that are watching is actually really exciting for us as well.
So I hope you're as excited as I am. It could be a long day of looking at rocks, or it could be an incredibly exciting day. Either way, you'll have to stay tuned to find out what happens.
One of the highlights of this expedition has been using the ROV to be able to collect biological samples. And one of the amazing things is the quality of the cameras. So we can zoom right in on a tiny rock and see animals that are just centimetres or almost millimetres long, and then actually have the dexterity with pilots that have the skills to be able to pick up those animals. It's just astounding that this is happening at the bottom of the ocean. Being able to adapt to pick up delicate things and more robust animals and store them in different places safely to bring them up to the surface is really important to obtaining a good collection of samples.
You could imagine maybe 100 years ago you collected something. You didn't imagine a genetic revolution coming. You didn't imagine that it would have this entire new utility, 50 odd years later. And so we're going to imagine what can happen next with our collections.
Look at it, it's crazy. What is it?
Whatever we find, we'll come away with an amazing deep sea collection that we'll take back to the Western Australia Museum and take care of and then share with the world.
ROV Bridge, good morning. Bridge, off deck, that's ROV off deck.
I think the thing to keep in mind about this is actually the average ocean depth is nearly 4,000 metres. So the vast area of the world is at that depth or greater. And we've barely begun to really discover what is down there at that depth.
For this expedition, we are remapping the Cape Range Canyon in the evenings when we're not doing ROV dives. We're doing this because the scientists want to be able to compare the existing data with the new data. This might provide insight into some new areas that need to be explored. And with this data, we get an extremely high-resolution map of the seafloor. We get to see nooks and crannies of the canyon floor.
I always find it amazing to think that no human eyes have actually looked at this piece of seafloor before. So you are seeing it at the same moments that we are, and I think it's really special.
I think for myself, the highlights are literally ever changing. So the most recent thing we've looked at and found, I'm so thrilled about, I can hardly believe. Then 5 minutes later, the next thing we find, I'm so thrilled about, I can hardly believe we have it.
This is a pretty exciting catch for us. It's only been recorded in Australia on one occasion before, where 2 individuals were caught.
We found this incredible solitary hydroid, a relative of corals and sea anemones that stood well over 1 metre tall. I think that's likely to be a new species.
Our goals for this expedition was to understand the biodiversity of Western Australia in a much deeper way. And this is because we haven't actually explored the deep ocean around that coastline very much at all. Simply by carrying out these surveys, we've already increased our knowledge hugely. Every day we're finding amazing critters, new records for Western Australia, new records for Australia, new things that we haven't seen before, and new species. So it's just been an amazing experience.